Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Far too often we don't pay much attention to the women in the Bible. With few exceptions like Ruth or Esther, or Sarah and Mary, we perceive that women play something of a minor role in Bible stories we know and love, and if they win an award at all, it is for Best Supporting Actor. The lead actor hardly at all. In fact, nothing could be further from the truth. Throughout the Bible, women play vital roles, and it isn't their fault that they lived in a patriarchal society or that the stories that were handed down and eventually written were told and written by men. Even so, the Bible is full of stories involving women who were key figures in the drama of salvation God was working among God's people. This week I want us to explore some of those stories that you might not be so familiar with. Today let's start with the story of two women, Vashti and Esther. There's a book of our Old Testament called Esther, and the story I'll tell today is indeed her story, and it involves Vashti too. Hold on to your hats because it's a complex tale with lots of intrigue and scheming. When the story begins, it begins with Ahasuerus, who was the king of Persia, and Persia had conquered the land of Israel. The king threw a lavish 7-day banquet to show off his power and splendor, and there was much feasting and drinking. But parties such as this were not co-ed in those days. It was strictly men only. Meanwhile, his queen, a woman named Vashti, entertained the women with a party of their own. But after 7 days of all this revelry and showing off his wealth and possessions, the king summoned Vashti and told her to display herself to his guests so they could marvel at her beauty. But Vashti felt humiliated and treated like an object instead of a person, and refused. So she was deposed, and the king sought another queen. Before we leave her, perhaps we should give a shout out to Vashti and how she recognized that women have value and worth, and how she set the stage even then for us to see and understand women as equal partners with men. The king conducted a search throughout his lands, and eventually Esther was chosen to be the new queen. Her uncle, Mordecai, was chosen to be an advisor to the king, but the king didn't seem to realize that they were both Jews. And now the plot begins to thicken. Not long after this, Mordecai uncovers a plot to assassinate the king and reveals the plot. Meanwhile, the king's chief advisor, a man named Haman, has developed a real hatred for the Jews and for Mordecai in particular. Haman expected people to bow down when he passed by, and Mordecai never did. One night, when the king can't sleep, he went to the throne room and had the court record read to him. When it came to the part about how Mordecai uncovered the plot against the king, he asked, "What did we do to reward him?" That's about the time Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What should I do to reward someone who has served me well?" Haman thinks the king is talking about him, so he answers with lavish rewards. "Great," the king said. "Go do that for Mordecai." Haman seethed. Then Haman developed a plot to kill all the Jews, including Mordecai, and convinces the king to put it into law. Once again, Mordecai discovers the plot, and as the gallows is being built on which to hang Mordecai, he goes to Esther, herself also a Jew, and asks for help. Long story short, she invites the king and Haman to a banquet and reveals herself as a Jew. The king rescinds the order, and in the end, Haman is hanged on the very gallows he intended for Mordecai. The Jews still celebrate this event and how their people were saved in a holiday they call Purim. And the book of Esther in our Bible holds a unique place because the name of God is never found in its pages. And yet, as you read the story, you can't help but have the sense that God is behind everything that happens. And when Mordecai goes to Esther for help, he tells her, "Perhaps this is the reason you are in the position you are in as queen." That's one way of saying that perhaps God put you here to save your people. So today we honor these two women, one who saved her people and one who stood up for women as valued people. And as God worked through them, perhaps they leave us with a question. How is God working through you? Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.